On this bonus edition of Icethetics Jersey Watch, we're going beyond the NHL for a broader look at what's new across the hockey uniform universe. The PWHL finished its historic brand rollout with the reveal of impressive uniforms for all 6 teams, and more could be on the way. New identities expanded the logo landscapes across the minor and junior leagues, and retros reigned as AHL teams brought specialty jerseys to a new level this season. But before we can go beyond, we should take a quick look inside the big league with an inevitable leak from Utah right now on this bonus edition of Icethetics Jersey Watch, Beyond the NHL. Not only is this a bonus edition of Jersey Watch, it's also my last episode for the current hockey season. The next one will give us our first look at what's ahead for the 25-26 season. And one of the topics will of course be the Utah Hockey Club. Everyone is eager to know what their permanent branding will be. The team is conducting a survey that is very public and yet very secretive at the same time. Not sure we've ever seen anything quite like it. So before we go beyond the NHL, let's get up to date on the latest out of Utah, because they have been busy. 2 rounds of online votes, which began last May, pared down a list of 20 possible team names to 6 finalists, and now just 3 final options. On January 29th, the franchise officially began the next phase of its naming process, revealing those final 3 names. Option 1, Utah Hockey Club. As generic as this moniker may seem, it's still unique among NHL teams, and fans have rallied around it during this inaugural season, with some even wryly referring to themselves as clubbers. Option 2, the Utah Mammoth. This was an early favorite during the initial voting period last summer, but the potential trademark overlap with the pro lacrosse team in the neighboring state of Colorado could be an issue. Option 3, the Utah Wasatch. Yeah, this one came completely out of left field. It wasn't on the original list of names, and it's not like there was some grassroots fan effort around it either. What it is a reference to the nearby Wasatch Mountain Range, but as a pro sports franchise name, it stinks out loud. And apparently I'm not the only one who thought so, as the franchise decided to seek one last round of fan feedback. This time, the surveys were taken offline. Only those fans in attendance for the next 4 home games at the Delta Center would be able to weigh in, as staffers canvassed the concourse for the local perspective. And after only the first night, it became clear that Wasatch was so despised, the club didn't even wait 24 hours to announce a replacement. In a post the following afternoon, the team said, "For the team name, it's clear that Outlaws should be in the mix instead of Wasatch, so we're swapping it out." It's worrying just how off base they were to even include that in the last round of voting. Don't get me wrong, a surprise late ad could have been a really fun twist, but Wasatch was not it. And while Utah Outlaws had a lot of fans in early voting, there was a much more buzzed about name that was left out entirely. What happened to the Utah Yeti? Though it was a popular pick, there were reports that the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office was unconvinced that the name wouldn't infringe on the well-known Cooler brand. And with no deal between Yeti and Smith Entertainment Group, the franchise abandoned that name. So they went to fans with the final 3 choices: Mammoth, Outlaws, and Utah Hockey Club. But it wasn't just the names being presented. The team promised to look at branding treatments to help fans visualize the new potential identities. That meant prototype logos. This is something we never get to see during a major sports team's brand process. But because the surveys were only being conducted in person at the arena, the logos were not shared by the team online, and therefore those of us not in the building would never get to see them. No, who am I kidding? They leaked almost immediately. In a world of ever-present smartphone cameras, of course fans would sneak photos that they could post on the internet. So, here is what they saw: a woolly mammoth, a masked bandit, and believe it or not, a Yeti logo, the one thing that might draw fans to the generic hockey club moniker. So, while the team may not be called the Yeti officially, a UHC logo could very well feature a snow monster. All 3 logos employ the same design style, though the lack of personality and distinctiveness led many fans to compare these to the generic logos you might find in a video game. And they're not entirely wrong. My hunch was that these were merely samples of what could be done with each name, and that whatever name is picked more time would be spent developing a unique look. But the clock is ticking. The NHL usually requires an 18-month runway for a new brand, but this one will need to be on the ice by October. That's just 7 months away. So, whatever the name ends up being, the logo is probably already designed and has conditional approval from the league. In fact, with the final surveys completed a month ago, production is probably already getting underway as we speak. And I doubt any of these 3 designs will be the final Utah logo, but they'll probably be close. Now we just have to wait and see. I anticipate a big reveal in Salt Lake City sometime this summer. And with that, we are ready to go beyond the NHL. All right, first up, the story that I'm way behind in getting onto the channel, the PWHL jersey reveal. The Women's League officially launched their team names back in September, but we didn't get our first look at the uniforms for another 2 months. On November 7th, the PWHL unveiled the Bauer-made home and away jerseys for each franchise. Let's dive in by starting with a closer look at where each team started last year, and then we'll wrap up with a quick ranking of all 12 jerseys. The Boston Fleet kept their dark green base from Season 1 and traded silver accents for seafoam green. Those stripes certainly give a sense of rising waves and a connection to the sea, and the crest looks great here. And the white away jersey might be even more eye-catching with that reversed color striping. On the back, the number decorations are a unique feature across all the new PWHL uniforms, and Boston, in particular, utilizes the wave pattern from their primary logo. And all 6 teams wear the PWHL logo on their right shoulder, with some also having sponsors in other positions on the jerseys. The Minnesota Frost kept their inaugural purple, but traded out the black for a brighter lavender. The big F logo is situated on the chest with a very traditional striping style around the waist and sleeves, and I like the snow-capped look of those white shoulders. The white jersey is nice too, but the lighter lavender causes the logo to fade out a little. To be honest, I'm a bit puzzled about why they didn't have the heavier dark outline that we see in the primary logo itself. For the number treatment, we see a repeating pattern of an icicle shape, similar to the team's main mark. The Montreal Victoires maintain the burgundy and vintage white base colors from last season, but the charcoal shoulders and stripes become navy blue to align with that beautiful new primary logo. And there are these vivid bright blue accents, which were not part of their brand reveal, but it complements the overall palette pretty well. Montreal's white jersey is the only one of the bunch that is not actually white. This vintage white style really suits the team's branding, though I'm not as much of a fan of the light blue on this jersey. The repeating pattern in the numbers contains the fleur-de-lis from the crest design. And of course, being in Montreal, the Victoires use the French version of the PWHL logo on their shoulder. The New York Sirens kept the aqua-colored jerseys from their first year. The color is intended to mimic the copper patina on the Statue of Liberty. Navy blue, orange, and gray fill out the rest of the jersey in a really striking combination. This is one of those designs that you'll never confuse for another team. Though in fairness, I do think most of the PWHL was successful there. The white jersey is sharp too, but the lack of gray accents makes me think the gray on the home jersey should probably be white for better contrast. And the number adornments here are the most basic in the league, the sets of 3 lines being an echo of what we see on the ends of the word mark in the primary logo. The Ottawa Charge carry over the red and charcoal gray from last season, but the yellow accents are a new addition, but they'll have a tough time kicking the Calgary comparisons with this red home jersey. It's a nice design, but it definitely has that Flames feel. Even more so when you account for the reverse color crest on the white jersey. But the Charge are the one team whose road jersey is actually the better looking design, if you ask me. On the back, the numbers are embellished by the energy lines coming out of the O in their primary logo. And lastly, the Toronto Scepters stuck to the bright blue base color from a year ago and added some bright pops of yellow with that dazzling crest. The accents continue on the collar and in the jersey striping as well. And of course, the black on the old jersey transitions to navy blue this season. The white away jersey is a good look too, though maybe a little less dynamic. I do wonder how the primary logo would have looked here in blue rather than yellow. And the repeating pattern in the numbers on the back employ the shape of the orb from the top of the scepter in that crest logo. All in all, impressive designs across the board. Fantastic attention to detail, and just very distinctive for a new league trying to establish itself. So, now the part where I offer up a very subjective ranking of all 12 jerseys. You can pause the video here where I have all 12 jerseys on screen, and you can make your own ranking, and then let's compare. Okay, at the bottom of my list, Minnesota's white jersey. That crest just gets lost for me. Then above that, the Scepter's white jersey has a similar problem, though not as bad, and I do like the stripes. At number 10, Ottawa's red, my lowest ranked home jersey, just not the biggest fan of that one. At 9, the Sirens white jersey, good color combos here. Number 8 is Montreal's vintage white. In 7th place, I have Minnesota's purple, lower than I would have expected, but I think the angled lettering just leaves too much awkward space on the front of the jersey. At number 6 is the Charge's white jersey. I just think all the colors balance better here. Number 5 is my favorite white jersey of the bunch, from the Fleet. Again, just outstanding use of color. In 4th, it's Montreal's red jersey. Last fall, I would have ranked their logo as the best in the league, but I don't quite feel the same about the jerseys. The bright blue accent is cool, but it kind of throws things off a bit. Not totally sure how I feel about it yet. Number 3 is the Sirens teal jersey. It's just so instantly recognizable for me. Great color combo and implementation. All right, getting to the top of the list now, and it's between these two, Toronto's blue and Boston's green. And I had to give it to the Scepters. I really do love that shade of blue. It's almost an electric blue that I've always wished the Tampa Bay Lightning would try out sometime. And of course, the Fleet's home jersey is great as well, but that's just how it goes when you do a ranking. Somebody has to come in second. All right, so what's next? I haven't heard whether the PWHL is ready to start considering third jerseys or specialty theme nights yet, but I hope something like that is coming soon. These jerseys all look great, but some alternate colors here and there would be kind of fun. On the other hand, there could be some new team branding in the not-too-distant future. The PWHL is already considering expansion, with an announcement expected in the next month or so. The Takeover Tour has been a great opportunity to see which cities could support a team. Quebec City turned out with over 18,000 fans, and Denver set a new U.S. attendance record for women's hockey with 14,000. We'll keep an eye on all of that. Meanwhile, some of the minor leagues in men's hockey have already been expanding recently. In fact, the ECHL added 2 new teams last fall, one of which was in Illinois. On January 24, 2024, the Bloomington Bison revealed their name and logo. And a few months later, they announced a long-term affiliation agreement with the New York Rangers. In September, jerseys were unveiled, red and black with these distinctive light blue accents. A really solid look for the new franchise. Then on January 15th of this year, the Bison announced a third jersey, going all in on that light blue alternate color and kind of a retro feel with those barber pole sleeves. But the ECHL is not done growing. Now with 29 teams, the league is on a path to match the size of the NHL and AHL, which currently sit at 32 franchises each. The goal would be to have enough for all NHL clubs to have dedicated ECHL development affiliates. To that end, next season the league will reach 30 teams as it expands into Greensboro, North Carolina. On January 14th, the team officially revealed its identity, the Greensboro Gargoyles. The expansive brand design package was developed by The Barn, the same agency that built the brand of the Tahoe Night Monsters, who also joined the ECHL with Bloomington this season. The Barn's founder, Nick, goes way back with Icethetics, by the way. Long story short, we started a fantasy league called the ICHL about 17 years ago, and Nick designed the logos for a team called the North Carolina Nighthawks. It's such a thrill to be reporting on his professional work after all this time. And Nick is not one to skimp on creative with his clients, by the way. Tahoe has an expansive design suite including 9 distinct logo assets. There's the primary lockup, then a simplified version. There's the monster's head, which is used as the jersey crest, 2 secondary logos, one to mimic the Golden Knights and Silver Knights logos, and one that follows the shape of Lake Tahoe itself. There are 2 shield marks, a KM for Night Monsters, and a T for Tahoe, and a couple of mountainous word marks to fill out the package. Same story for the new Greensboro Gargoyles. This shield is the dedicated primary mark. There's an alternate logo with the creature's face and likely the jersey crest, though jerseys probably won't be officially unveiled until September. There are 2 secondary marks with the gargoyle in various action poses, a tertiary mark that could end up being a shoulder patch, and a couple of additional lockup designs. Oh, and 5 unique word marks. Needless to say, this is impressive work as the ECHL keeps looking better and better with teams seeking out Nick's creative direction. The other new team branding I wanted to call out comes from the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, part of the CHL. The Acadie Bathurst Titan were sold in December, and relocation was announced for the 25-26 season. When the franchise departs New Brunswick this summer, they'll land in St. John's, Newfoundland, a city which lost their ECHL team last year. On January 23rd, the new name and logo were officially announced. This is the Newfoundland Regiment, with branding inspired by the Royal Newfoundland Regiment, the province's legendary infantry unit from World War I. The logo is an absolute standout, with a classic look and feel. You'd be forgiven for thinking this design had been around for decades. Jerseys have yet to be revealed, but I imagine they will be just as good. Anyway, that covers the new teams, so let's wrap up with the American Hockey League, as we go from a team that just arrived in Newfoundland to one that moved away some years ago. In 2017, the St. John's Ice Caps departed for Quebec, where they became the Laval Rocket. They introduced these jerseys, which remained very consistent until this season when the club made a few minor changes. The main difference is the addition of bands around the elbows to match the stripe across the chest. That stripe used to wrap all the way around to the back of the jersey, which I imagine was a bit of a nightmare for broadcasters trying to read numbers. Alright, now the fun part. All of the AHL specialty jerseys we've been enjoying throughout this season. Just for reference, in case you're unfamiliar, the NHL averages about 3 jerseys per team each season. Home, away, and a third jersey for most teams. That average can rise or fall depending on how many teams use alternates, how many special events there are, Winter Classic, Stadium Series, and so on, and league-wide initiatives like Reverse Retro. In the American Hockey League, the average is usually around 6 jerseys per team, with some clubs wearing up to 10 or 12 different designs in the same season. That's all thanks to theme night jerseys teams are permitted to wear in-game, many of which are later auctioned to benefit local charities or medical research. One of the more popular themes involves throwback jerseys, or at least throwback-inspired, and there have been a lot of those this season. Take the Grand Rapids Griffins, who have worn 2 this year alone. They recently added what they're calling a 4th jersey, a bit of a spin on the NHL's Reverse Retro. The Griffins wore a design similar to this, with the wing pattern on the shoulders, back in the late 90s while part of the International Hockey League, but they never wore a red version until now. Their existing 3rd jersey dates back almost 20 years and includes their longtime secondary logo on a sweater modeled after their NHL affiliate, the Detroit Red Wings. Speaking of which, the Griffins also wore a jersey inspired by the Detroit Cougars, the original identity of the Red Wings franchise a century ago. That theme night was intended to benefit the Salvation Army. And one more fun note while we're on Grand Rapids, the team updated their main home and away jerseys this season, which are usually paired with red gear, helmets, gloves, and pants. But for a couple of road games in mid-February, the Griffins went full blackout mode. I don't know if it was a trial run for a permanent change or just a fun experiment, but either way, they looked great. Now, the most fun throwback for NHL fans this season has to be this one from the Providence Bruins, another reverse retro theme. Basically, it's the jerseys that they and their parent club in Boston introduced in the mid-90s, converted to yellow, with the brown bear 3rd jersey crest from the same era. And Providence has worn that jersey several times this season, including twice against the Springfield Thunderbirds, who wore their own throwback, a tribute to the old Springfield Indians franchise. It's fun to see color versus color games like this one. Alright, there are a few other examples of teams wearing throwbacks to other franchises that preceded them in other leagues. For example, the Belleville Senators, dressed as the old Belleville Bulls of the Ontario Hockey League. The Charlotte Checkers paid tribute to the old Charlotte Clippers, who played in the Eastern Hockey League in the late 1950s before rebranding to the original iteration of the Charlotte Checkers. What's funny about these jerseys is that they're black and gray, when the Clippers actually wore black and yellow, much like the Boston Bruins. But of course, most of the photos from that era are black and white. So did they design the jerseys not knowing this, or were they going for a black and white photo style? The original Checkers League folded in 1977, but the brand was revived in 1993 when the ECHL was formed. The AHL adopted the Checkers name in 2010 when the Albany River Rats were sold and relocated. Which brings us to our next kind of throwback, the controversial kind. You know how the Carolina Hurricanes have been wearing Hartford Whalers jerseys once in a while for the past few years? And how some people hate that because while yes, that brand is part of the franchise's lineage, it was also ruthlessly ripped away from fans in another city. Yeah, a couple of AHL teams are doing that too. The Checkers brought back the River Rats for one game only on February 22nd. They called it What If Night, as in, what if the team opted not to rebrand after relocating in 2010? What if they became the Charlotte River Rats instead? Even the anthropomorphic rat on the chest got a new jersey that reads Charlotte instead of Albany. And to make things even stranger, this is the Florida Panthers affiliate straight up wearing New Jersey Devils uniforms. And then a similar story with the Iowa Wild, who used to be the storied Houston Aeros until the move out of Texas in 2013. So on Military Appreciation Night, instead of the typical camo jerseys, they became the Iowa Aeros for one night only. Anyway, this is the kind of thing that makes the minor leagues so much fun to cover. And speaking of fun, the Ontario Reign have suffered from a minor identity crisis over the years, at least among hockey fans from outside of Southern California, who mostly associate Ontario with Canada and hear rain as the drops that fall from the sky, neither of which really apply here. But rather than fight the confusion, the team kind of leaned into it this year for a game as the Ontario Reign, as in the Canadian province and the wet weather conditions. The jersey featured an anthropomorphic royal cloud on the chest, and we know he's Canadian because of the gold maple leaf on his crown and the provincial flag of Ontario on the jersey's right shoulder. The design and execution of this concept was led by LA Kings creative director and longtime Icethetics contributor, Matt McElroy. Couple more quick hits before we finish up. The back-to-back Calder Cup champion Hershey Bears opened the season with a special jersey hyping their accomplishment. Note the first B in back-to-back is a 13 in reference to the number of AHL championships they've won in their long 86-year history. In January, the Bears rolled out a new third jersey that reads Chocolate Town USA. But I have to say this is not one of my favorite designs from them. The Lehigh Valley Phantoms have been wearing this blackout uniform on occasion every year since 2019. And in 22, they introduced a whiteout uniform, which is hilariously amazing and includes white pants. And then this season, they launched another new alternate design with this charcoal gray. The Hartford Wolfpack debuted in 1997 after the Whalers relocated to North Carolina, and this season they celebrated 50 years of Hartford hockey. Now, if you're kind of a hockey historian and you're trying to do the math there, yes, the New England Whalers were founded in the WHA in 1972, not 1975. So why are they only now hitting 50 years? Well, the team originally played in Boston, sharing an arena with the Bruins. But it was during the 1974 season they decided to move to Hartford and played their first game at the Hartford Civic Center on January 11, 1975. That building is now known as the XL Center, home of the Wolfpack, who played there on the 50th anniversary, wearing a Whalers-inspired jersey. Not the original green Whalers, mind you, but the navy blue 90s version for some reason. Still great-looking jerseys, though. Under the heading of eye-popping designs, we have this Neon Night jersey from the Charlotte Checkers. It's a riff on their 90s look, which was black, and a muted blue and orange. This is more like a reverse retro fever dream. Add to that, the Milwaukee Admirals, who debuted this faux-back design in 2021. It's supposed to look like an old jersey, but it's not based on anything from the team's actual history. Then this year, they added a red version of that into the mix as a fourth jersey. And in the midst of the 50th anniversary of Saturday Night Live, the ads transformed into the Milwaukee Cowbells, in tribute to the memorable Will Ferrell sketch. They wore copper-colored jerseys with a custom crest, all designed by a local agency called Traction Factory. All right, let's come in for a landing here. Around the holidays, many minor league teams will do a teddy bear toss night, collecting toys to donate to children in need. For the Springfield Thunderbirds, that night was set for December 7th, for which they were planning special jerseys that featured the bird in their logo wearing a Santa hat. Except, as December 7th neared, the jerseys did not. Through some bizarre shipping mix-up, they landed in Germany. Instead, the T-Birds donned their green Indians throwback for that game, which still worked out as far as Christmas colors go. Eventually, they did finally receive those specialty jerseys and wore them for 2 games after Christmas, with a special Easter egg, a passport stamp hidden inside the hemline. And with that, this video has certainly gone on long enough. So, as I say goodbye, I'll just remind you to subscribe and set your notifications because the next video I upload to this channel will be the first Jersey Watch of the 25-26 season. Tell your friends. And that's all for now. Drop a like on your way out if you want to support the channel, and as always, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.